everyone. Thanks for joining Christina and I today. We are both from the Greater Louisville Education Cooperative. Our mission is to enhance the educational opportunities and outcomes of students by delivering services in partnership with the Kentucky Department of Education, with districts such as JCPS and KSB, an Institute of Higher Education. We have been invited to discuss progress monitoring and will share resources and examples along the way.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christina. I'm so glad that you guys were able to join us today. Just a quick note that JCPS will have ECE staff on live chat to answer any questions. And today, again, we're focusing on progress monitoring. So progress monitoring really is about determining the effectiveness of our instruction. And so this is it's a cycle. So we instruct, we progress monitor to see how effective our instruction is, and it goes on and on. We instruct and progress monitor. And the role of a teacher is one of the most important roles of a service provider, because when we provide the specially designed instruction, that addresses the unique needs of our students while enabling our students to make that progress in the general curriculum. And so again, you see that visual, it's showing us that we have to instruct and progress monitor to determine effective instruction. And one should not occur without the other. So we shouldn't be instructing without progress monitoring, or vice versa, progress monitoring without instructing.
COVID-19 pandemic. Before we move further into our instruction progress monitoring, let's talk about what is happening in our world today, a pandemic. We are in an unprecedented time. This means that we are faced with tasks that we take us out of our comfort zone. Yes, I'm talking about technologies to instruct and gather monitoring data. Even though that we are facing difficult times, service providers like you guys are rising to the occasion. Just remember to follow the district's guidance for the non-traditional instruction. Learning at home. We know that this is not easily juggling everything. Many service providers have little ones at home and are trying to teach students while helping their own with homework. Hopefully you can find a tiny corner in the house to decide for instructing and progress monitoring students' performance. Instruction and progress monitoring with technology. For some students, we may be able to use technology to instruct and progress monitor. Instruction and progress monitoring without technology. But for some students and family, technology is not an option. In addition to using technology, some service providers are creating paper-based instruction and progress monitoring tools and following the district-approved procedures for sending and retrieving paper-based materials for students and families. Progress monitoring is determined effectiveness of instruction. Once we get progress monitoring materials from our student service providers, we'll evaluate and analyze students' performance to determine if instruction provided was effective. If progress monitoring data is followed the aim line, then we are good to continue the instruction. However, if our students' progress monitoring is consistent 3 data points below the aim line, then we will need to adjust the instructional strategies. During NTI days, document the special design instructions that you are providing for your students. We've added a bit.ly link in the slide to an example of special design instruction log.
Okay, so this is a flow chart, and it's a tool to facilitate progress monitoring supports during non-traditional instruction days. So the question that we might ask ourselves, are the methods of measurement that we're using in the classroom going to continue to be effective during non-traditional instruction days? And so it's yes, if you're able to use the same methods of measurement and you're freely getting the materials back and forth from your students. So if that's the case, yes, keep going, keep doing what you're doing. But sometimes we have to make some minor adjustments. For example, if you have an oral reading fluency probe, maybe you're going to have your parents help you take that data. So we're going to adjust document those adjustments and then continue to progress monitor. That's really good. Now, sometimes we might be at a screeching halt, but these are some guiding questions that might help us. Is it an access issue? And if it is, are there any technology-based options out there, just alternative ways that we can gather that data? Or the next one is, are you unable to gather the products or getting them back and forth between your students? So then we're going to ask ourselves, is there another way to gather that data? So the point here is we're going to document. We're going to try to do something, reach out to our parents, and then document what we're doing. And so the remaining few slides are going to talk about and provide examples of progress monitoring. And they're going to show you some examples with technology and without technology. And then after this, we're going to dive into some progress monitoring resources that will be helpful to all of us. The following are additional examples of how to progress monitor during non-traditional instruction days. So there are 3 basic steps to progress monitoring during non-traditional instruction days. The first step is to send your progress monitoring materials to your students. The second step is to gather those completed materials, which becomes your data. And then the third step is to evaluate and analyze the data. So in this example, an oral reading fluency probe, which is a curriculum-based measure, was emailed to the parents, at which point the parents were able to gather that data by providing their students the probe and then recording their students reading that probe aloud. That recording was then sent to the service provider, at which point she's able to directly observe her student and then capture her student's performance on the appropriate method of measurement. In this case, it's the oral reading fluency probe. And then she graphs the data to determine if her student is making progress or not over time. So right below the oral reading fluency probe URL, that will take you to the University of Oregon's website, to the Dibbles and Idle download materials. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. You need to go to the Kentucky Dose Support Network. This is their homepage. Scroll over to the right to COVID-19 and then down to instructional resources. Click on instructional resources and it takes you to this page. The first items that you will see are the Kentucky Department of Education's Special Education Cooperative webcasts, which are held every Friday at 11 o'clock. The first one was Specially Designed Instruction, Meaningful Progress Monitoring was the next, and the most recent is Accommodations and Modifications. But scroll down because we're interested in the Progress Monitoring tool. Go to Sources for Baseline and Progress Monitoring Tools. Click on that link. And it takes you to this wonderful resource that was developed by the Kentucky Special Education Cooperatives. There are 9 special ed cooperatives across the state. If you scroll down to the next page, you'll find curriculum-based measures resources. And we're looking at basic reading fluency. The first tool is Dibbles K-8 curriculum-based measures. Here is a brief description that's in the center. And then go ahead and click on that link. That link is going to take you to the University of Oregon's website, the Dibbles and Idle testing materials downloads. The first group of assessments you're going to see are the benchmark assessments, grades K-8. And these are the assessments that you give to students the beginning, middle, and end of the school year to see their progress. And it reviews a multitude of skills. But what we are interested in, if you scroll down, is the progress monitoring materials. So oral reading fluency probes start at grade 1 and go all the way down to grade 8. I'm going to click on grade 1. First thing you'll see is 2 pages of scoring booklets. Scroll past that and you're going to get to the progress monitoring for oral reading fluency probes. You see this is grade 1, first level probe or first probe. It has the examiner's script along with reminders. There is the first grade reading probe. And to the right of that passage are the number of words per passage. So there's 197 words in this passage. Scroll all the way down because I want to show you that there are a multitude of resources in here. There are 20 probes in total. So here is first grade level, the 20th probe. And if you scroll to the last page, you're going to see the oral reading fluency probe graph. You could graph your students' progress here, but my suggestion would be to use the progress monitoring graph that you've already created for your student. Hopefully this was helpful. Remember, it's grades 1 through 8. You have 20 probes per grade level. So if you need oral reading fluency probes, this is a place to get it. Okay, so we are going to take a closer look at some of the additional progress monitoring tools. That was one. I'm going to click on Kentucky Dose Support Network, but this, below it, there's a link to the sources of baseline and progress monitoring tools, which we looked into with that video. It's also in Kentucky Dose Support. So I'm going to click on that, and it takes you to their homepage. But you're going to want to, again, scroll over to COVID-19, click on Instructional Resources, past the Kentucky Department of Education's webcasts, and go down to progress monitoring resources. The first one, again, is the sources for baseline and progress monitoring tools. But look below, there are also additional resources here for you guys. But I'm going to click into the sources for baseline and progress monitoring because it has so many resources in here. Remember, we're going to use what you already have been using. So if something is you're using for progress monitoring and you're able to do that, please do that. This is just if you are struggling to get additional resources and you need some curriculum, maybe some curriculum-based measures, here's a place to get it. And let me walk you through the overall look of this resource. The first, it's broken into 3 sections. So the first one is curriculum-based measures. The second one is direct measures. And the third one is indirect measures. So again, we clicked on the DIBELS K through 8. They had the oral reading fluency probes, but they also have nonsense word fluency, phonemic segmentation fluency, word reading fluency. There's the link to it. Also, Intervention Central has letter naming, letter sound fluency, additional oral reading fluency probes. There are resources for reading comprehension. For example, MAZE is an assessment that assesses reading comprehension. So DIBELS has that. Intervention Central, Easy CBM. Hopefully, Kelly, remind me if I have some time, I want to go back to Easy CBM because that is also chock full of resources. Written expression, also there are some curriculum-based measures here. Math, they've got Intervention Central for math fluency and math computation. So you see, I'm going to keep scrolling down. So direct measures, this is where we have to directly observe a behavior of our students. So there are several here. We've got, if you are assessing sight words maybe, or Dolch words or Fry words, they're right here if you guys want to look at those. There's a checklist for letter sound recognition, running record forms. Let's see. Sorry, reading comprehension checklist. Now, here's the thing that we might struggle trying to get these resources back and forth from our parents. And so there is a frequency count, event recording. I'm just going to click into event recording. So it'll take us to another website. This is, I believe it is the University of Kansas website. Here is the event recording form. So you would click on that. It's going to download that form for you. And then you open it up and you can see the form and then the directions above it. So let's get me back to my screen. Aha, found myself. Okay, time sampling forms. There's a video for time sampling. There's some additional learning tools in here as well. Interval recordings, duration, latency, ABC anecdotal recordings as well. Now remember, if you're doing ABC or anecdotal, we have to pair that with another method of measurement. But there are some examples to do that. There are additional checklist generators, like a behavior checklist generator. And then there's indirect methods of measurement, which are things that you could send to your students. So there's a handwritten checklist, paragraph checklist, a rubric generator, self-monitoring checklist. So there are all sorts of resources in here. I'm just going to check the time. I feel like we're good. So I'm going to go back up to Easy CBM because I feel like it's also a really great resource for us.
And of course, on these different reading resources, you can definitely record your student, right? And not have to worry about, I think Easy CBM had a recording, but if you had to pay for it. But you could record these on Meet, and then any of these, and then take that data later. Is that correct?
I'm not sure, because I've to be honest, I've never done the Teacher Deluxe where you actually subscribe to it.
Yeah.
As a teacher, I've always done the light version, but there are different ways to get around that too. Like you saw in the video, where you could send the probe with the directions to your parents, and then have them, either you're doing it virtually and you can take the data then, or you could have them upload a video of their kids.
And how neat would it be to put that video link into that document so that you had an actual audio to then later on show the student like a video modeling of their reading, so that they could reread over that, and later on you could, reteach, say, and have them help look at all those different mistakes that they possibly made. So I love technology. It's just so neat. And this is a good site, so I'm excited for you to share it.
Okay. So again, but I agree. I think it's so powerful to have your students watch themselves, and they learn so much from observing their own behavior. So I think that's critical. So I was going to show you the light version, because that is the free version. So you would get started, just click that. But I already have I've already registered, so I'm going to do. I'm just going to see the thing real quick. This is the light version. So you can add your students in here, but I'm just going to show you the measurements. So I'm going to click on the measures. And if you notice, it has K through 8. So these measurements are from grades kindergarten through 8th grade. And I am clicked on the kindergarten link because that's why the K is highlighted. So for reading, for example, you have LN, which is letter name fluency, letter sound fluency probes, phonemic segmentation. So I'm going to click on the student copy for letter name fluency. And so this is what you would provide your students, and they would read this aloud. You have a script. So let me go back to the assessor's copy to show you that you have a procedure direction. So you're going to follow that script. It takes 60 seconds to do this timed test. And voila, you have some resources here. Let's look at math real quick. Again, I'm in kindergarten because I haven't moved that. Let's look at and look, take online. So you can have your students take these assessments online. And let's just look at the student copy. So this is kindergarten level assessment. All right, let's just dive a little bit deeper. Let's go into 6th grade. Let's look at 6th grade. Here we have reading, passage reading fluencies, and let's look at the student copy. And you would give this to the student, and the teacher would have their assessor copy. And so here are the directions, and then you can follow along, take your data on here, and then determine how many correct words per minute that they read. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the time. So let's look at some math for 6th grade as well. So I just wanted to show you that there are tons of resources available for us if for some reason we don't have our materials to give to our students, or we're just looking for some additional ideas. So here, those were some of the progress monitoring tools. I'm back at the DOE Support Network. I'm going to scroll back up to show you that one of the sessions that we did was meaningful progress monitoring. You'll have the PowerPoint, the handout, and there's a webcast recording of that as well. There are additional resources over here. I'm trying to see, I'm not as familiar with, online learning. So if you wanted to get some additional information, for example, baseline data, how am I going to take baseline data? This is an online session that you could be a part of.
All righty, thank you so much for joining us today. We applaud you for doing the wonderful services you're doing with your students.
Are there any questions in the chat box? for us?
This is Melissa. Hey, thanks, guys. We really don't, but I didn't know if maybe you could give some examples, because we have about 8 minutes left.
Yeah.
If you had any examples that maybe you could share that would be helpful for those teachers, those ECE teachers that are co-teaching with regular teachers. Are there some examples in some of the progress monitoring that you all have that we could share with our teachers really quickly?
I think in co-teaching, it's the same thing. We're going to progress monitor whether we're in co-teaching setting or your resource setting the same way. You're going to look at your IEP, look at the method of measurement, and determine, hopefully you can do the same method of measurement, the same things that you're doing, and getting the data that way. But if not, basically you're going to follow. You might make some tweaks, or you might really think about talking to the parents if we're struggling, being sensitive to the parents' needs, kind of being a detective, and critically thinking and problem solving ways to progress monitor. But I can go back. Let's go back and look at some additional resources.
And while you're flipping back there, my other question might be is, in thinking about that co-teaching and ECE, collaboration, would it be appropriate to maybe work with your regular education teacher with some of these resources and ask them to collect the data for you, and then you collaborate after they did that? Would that be something that could be used?
I think so. I mean, as long as we're getting the progress monitoring data, and then I think it doesn't really matter who it's coming from, as long as it's the same method of measurement that's in the IEP, then I think we're okay. So if somehow the reg ed teacher wants to deliver that progress monitoring tool to their students, then they can do that as well. So
and I just want to clarify something that you just said, right? You said it, as long as it's the same method of measurement. We may have to alter that specially designed instruction because we are in this non-traditional learning, but we are still obligated to use that method of measurement. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying, yes, I think that the best that you possibly can, you're going to want to do the same method of measurement. So yes. And progress monitoring, we have to progress monitor, and we're going to graph our data just like we have been before, and we're going to analyze our data just like we have been before. But on the graph, while we're talking about this, you might put a line. It's a good procedure to put a line where your NTI instruction days started. So instead of saying, I'm changing my instruction, really you are kind of changing your instructional strategy here. And that way, the data is looking a little different. We can go back and talk about why that may be occurring. And then also, if you are struggling getting your progress monitoring, that would be a good place also with your parent contact log and campus to insert, your attempts and the responses. So let's look at some of the additional instruction materials. I'll go back down because this is so rich in resources. Let's scroll in here and look at some more. What do you think? Let's look at some time sampling recording. How about interval recording? Again, this takes you to the University of Kansas. And down here, so every page that you go to, you're going to have to kind of look around to find the tool, but on this page, it's below. So here's a recording example. So they'll provide you examples, as well as a printable copy. So you have this as well. Just remember to touch base with your parents and making sure that they feel comfortable. If you're asking them to help you gather the data and you're going to send them something like this whole interval recording form, you're going to be sure to let them know what circumstance you need to gather that data. So looking at, again, your IEP, and then also making sure that they feel comfortable, that they really understand how to take the data, and if they have any questions, again, they can ask you. So it's, the whole NTI, it's a strange world, but it's all about building those connections with our students and family virtually now. It's even more important to build that relationship with our parents, I think, right now. All right. Anything else do you think they'd want to look at, take a peek at?
No, I think you guys have covered it, and I just want to remind everyone that the slides are linked on the schedule, just like every day. This particular slide deck does require you to make a copy of your own, so you guys go ahead and just say yes to the copy. And we really thank the Greater Louisville Educational Cooperative today, Christina and Kelly, for taking over our slot. We very much appreciate it.